What's going on, everybody? Biker Dave here, working on Mr. White. Well, not really working on him, but we're doing a significant upgrade. And over the years, I've been doing my own carburetor work, tuning, adjustments, cleaning, rebuilding, blah, blah, blah. Pretty much my whole adult life. So I'm not afraid to dive into a carburetor. However, when you hear so many good things about a product, like thousands of great reviews and people just rave over a product, you just have to try it out, right? Just to see if it's all that they claim it is. So the Lectron carburetor is going to get thrown on to Mr. White. It is a carburetor that needs almost no adjusting once you set it up. It doesn't use common jets. It uses metering rods, similar to like an Edelbrock four-barrel car carburetor, high-performance carburetor. It's kind of similar to that, but it makes its own adjustments depending on altitude and humidity and temperature and that sort of thing, as well as performance out the wazoo, so everyone says. So we're going to try her out. Not that big a deal. You got to remove your subframe and your gas tank, because you also need to swap out the throttle cable. The stock one is a lot shorter from here to here versus the one you're going to need, and it comes with the carburetor. So they send you a really nice throttle cable upgrade, and it also comes with all the vent hoses and fuel line and everything. So it's really, really top notch. And it's also a good time, to make sure that your reeds are in good condition, because you finally get access to them. Make sure all your gaskets are good. Make sure everything is good and snug around the reed cage and all that. Because it's not every day that you remove the tank and the subframe and all that off the bike. So I try to knock out little things that are easy to access in this condition. I'm also going to, you don't have to swap out the throttle mechanism, but I'm going to have a look at it, and this one is a little bit old, so I may swap it out, with a Motion Pro throttle. And it's a good time also when you install the new throttle cable that you should lubricate it, down this hole right here. I'll also put a link on a cable luber. That's a very handy item to make sure that the new inner cable is lubricated as well as possible, because that's another item that you don't go into very often. Anyway, not that big a deal. Yeah, here's going to be the new throttle mechanism. It's called the Vortex throttle, which is for all of the Yamaha YZ125, YZ250, 125X, 250X, as well as most of your Suzuki two-strokes, 125s and 250 RMs, KX 125, 250 RM. We actually sell these on our website as well. It's a very common throttle as far as this style. For most of your Japanese two-strokes, over the past 30 years almost, that thing is for. Anyway, so we're going to throw that on. Very excited, because I've just been reading tons of info about this baby right here. And, everybody can't be wrong, so we're going to go for it. And all you have to do, I'm not going to do a video on setting it up, because there are tons of those online. Once you install it, though, you crank the bike and see how it's running right off the bat. If it seems to be running a little lean or rich, then you have to remove the lid right here, and then there's a metering rod inside there that you'll just rotate depending on the how your bike is running right off the bat. And then you don't have to really make any adjustments after the fact. Totally wicked. Quick tips on installing the Lectron carburetor on a YZ250. If you compare the two, stock one to this guy, Notice the Lectron is wider on the ports, from the boots. It's definitely it's a longer bore, compared to the stock one. So that means you do not need a spacer. Like if you have this spacer on your V-Force or any other reed cage, this spacer needs to be removed. Otherwise, everything will be too tight. Like from this boot here and then the airbox boot, everything will be too tight in there. So just remove that guy right there. No big deal. What else? On the throttle cable, you just screw this all the way down. This nut is installed already, but you'll screw this all the way down and snug it down. Then you'll make your throttle adjustments up top. Make your adjustments here and here. So that's slightly different than your regular throttle cable. No big deal though. And that's pretty much it. There are other videos on tuning it and that sort of thing. Any other tips? The flat side. Notice that flat side right there is what faces forward on the bike. So make sure that is correct. And when you make any adjustments to it, you can use a special tool that comes with it, or you can use, just a soft needle nose plier. Just put some tape around it or something so you don't damage this metering rod. And be careful handling this guy right here. But that's your slide, basically. Everything else looks pretty straightforward. I just wanted to throw those at you in case you're a little confused. No big deal otherwise. Looks really sharp. Make sure your gasket is installed correctly also. And you have that little gasket right there. Make sure the spring goes through it. And that gasket will go right up here. And honestly, I have a zillion different Allen wrenches of American and metric, and I couldn't find any that fit these stupid little screws. So I'm having to use a T15 Torx. Very weird. I mean, I've got every size of Allen known to man, and none of mine would fit this little guy here. So I'm using a T15 Torx. Whatever. It works fine. But I thought that was a little odd. I have every Allen wrench I've ever known to be used on any vehicle. But whatever. That's it. And everything else should be straightforward. But I just wanted to give you a note on that spacer needs to be removed. Another quick note here dealing with the Lectron Carb on the install. You have to tilt it all the way on its side to get it some space in there, if you're not planning on unbolting the rear shock absorber, which I'm not. But if you tilt the carb all the way like this, it will find its way in there, as you see. Then stand her up right there and push her in place. I like to also dampen that boot right there, maybe with a little light water or something. Just a little bit of dampness inside this boot will help it slide in place. That's what I always like to do when I'm dealing with a carburetor. And it's a little bit bigger around here, so I need to loosen this screw just a tad here. So yeah, just a little dampness around this rim right here. Water, spit, whatever, just a little bit that'll help it slide in place. But you notice, just tilting it over like this helps it find its way in this tiny cramped little area. A couple of other quick little notes here. It's easiest to install the carb without the throttle in place, without the slide in place. It just gives you a little more clearance, a little more room. So to install it, you just tilt the carb over to the side a little bit. Then you can install the slide and the spring and gasket and all that. And attach your throttle cable while it's tilted over like so. Then once it's the way you want it, you will stand it up straight like that and make sure it is centered. Like you see that right there. This carburetor doesn't have a notch in it like your factory key and carb does. So make sure that line that you see across the top of the carb lines up with the center of that slot on the boot. And that'll make sure that it's nice and level. And you also notice when you do attach some fuel and get fuel in the bowl here, you'll be able to look on both sides of the bike to make sure that it's even as far as the level of fuel. That way you'll know that the carburetor is not, tilted one way or the other. And that's that. One last thing on the install, on the YZ250, it has throttle position sensor wiring coming from the CDI right there that is not required on the Lectron Carb. So, you can just seal this off however you want to. Maybe put some dielectric grease on the connectors down inside there. Maybe just tighten it up. Seal this off, with some tape or zip ties or whatever. But this wiring is not used on the Lectron Carb versus your stock key and carb. So just want to note that because some people don't mention that. You'd be going, why? What do I do with these wires? They look important. So no big deal. They are not used on the Lectron. All right, we have the Lectron Carb installed. Looks fantastic. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, the only few simple things is just making sure you install your new throttle cable properly. Make sure your new fuel line is correct, and not kinked or twisted or anything. You can also see the fuel right there. It'll be right below the letter V, the word level. See the word level right there? Fuel level will be right there below the letter V, and it'll be the same on both sides of the carburetor. That way you'll know the carb is level. Make sure you tighten the little screws here underneath the float bowl because they're only about hand tight. Of course, make sure all of your fasteners on the top of the cap there is snug. And same with the boots, front and rear. Make sure they're all square and snug. No big deal. Pretty straight up for that. On the other side, you can do however you want, but the TPS connectors, that boot is right there. You can do it however you want. I may rethink that. I just wanted to cover it up and make sure there's no mud or water gets up in there for now. But I might rethink that because that's looks a little gay, but whatever. We'll rethink that at a later time. I run the hoses out the right side here with just a loose fitting zip tie. It's a loose zip tie right there just to keep them out of the way. Looks good though. I watched other videos that people were doing. I don't know why they don't just take the subframe off. They had it all tilted up and weird looking. Just take the thing off. It's only the seat, 2 side bolts, and the big one in the middle, and the whole subframe comes right off. I take it off anyway. Anytime I'm working on a carburetor, just remove the subframe. It makes it so much easier to get your hands in there and work around everything and all that. Come on, people. They're overthinking it. Same with taking the fuel tank off. You keep the shrouds on. You got the middle bolt right next to the coolant hose there on the right. That one there, you got 2 of those, 10 millimeter, and then a couple of 8 millimeters, depending on what yours is like. And you can just remove the fuel tank. Don't overthink this stuff. Looks sharp though. Too bad it's late in the evening, or I would test it out and fire it up. But yeah, it's kind of late in the evening, and my neighbors would not like it too much. So we will test her out tomorrow and hope to go riding on Thursday. But she looks beautiful. And I'll put a link down below where you can get one of these guys. It's the Lectron Carburetor on a YZ250 or YZ250X. No big deal. Just make sure, you take your time and do everything correctly and set the slack on your throttle. It should have a little bit of slack, just a little bit. Because if you cut the bar all the way over, if you have zero slack, the bike would try to run, it'd try to take off on you. So you need just a little bit of slack in the throttle. I did some safety wire up on the top there just to keep mud from getting in places it didn't belong and keep stuff secure and all that. Looking good though. This thing is already, a magic bike. 270 cc's, it runs excellent. Really good performance. And this, I guess we'll see what happens. This carburetor is supposed to make it even better. So I guess we'll see, and I will give you a full report next time I take it out. There you go, Mr. White now with Lectron Carburetor. Make sure you check out our other videos. We've got all kinds of stuff that may help you working on bikes like this or any other motorized vehicles. We have just hundreds of videos on our channel. So check it out. And Google Horsepower House. We're on eBay and Amazon, Facebook as well. Y'all have a good evening. See y'all later.